In Indonesia, Asian foreign ministers met for a second day of summit in Jakarta. The Myanmar conflict is a key topic on Wednesday's agenda. In Palestine, President Mahmoud Abbas arrived in the occupied West Bank city of Jenin following the attacks perpetrated by the Israeli army. And in Kenya, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi began an official tour of African countries to deepen bilateral ties of cooperation. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The government of Argentina announced the launching of a new credit line for retirees and pensioners that will have a subsidized rate. During a meeting with retired and pension workers, the Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, and the head of the National Social Security Administration Agency, Fernanda Raberta, indicated that the beneficiaries will be able to access loans through the Argentine Integrated Social Security System. Sergio Massa explained that the measure arose after the exchange of dollar debt in the hands of the public sector and that under this system they seek to support retirees. The head of the NSSA, Fernanda Raberta, pointed out that the interest rate subsidized by the state seeks to make it easier for retirees to have access to consumer goods and that it also allows them to fight inflation.
This afternoon, we want to share with you the decision to generate a new credit, a new NSSA credit, which has an amount of up to 400,000 pesos for retirees and pensioners. This means that those who are retirees will be able to access a credit with a very low interest rate, the lowest in interest rates in the market. It means that with only 29% of interest, retirees of Argentina will be able to access a credit of up to 400,000 pesos.
In this sense, the Argentine Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, pointed out that the new line of credit is intended to support retirees.
This is a support that the system has to try to protect and take care of our retirees. In this way, part of what we earn, 50 billion pesos, will be allocated to a fixed-rate credit program, up to 400,000 pesos per month, for the 7.5 million retirees and pensioners in Argentina, in up to 48 installments with fixed rates at 29% annually, because it is a subsidized rate of the state, to guarantee that this credit has the virtue of also serving as an instrument for retirees to consume, travel, fix their houses, buy something for their grandchildren, and beat the inflation, which is the other great task we have ahead of us.
On Tuesday, the 13 public officials held hostage since Monday by protesters in Chilpancingo, capital of the southern Mexican state of Guerrero, were released. Following a meeting with state authorities, demonstrators released the 5 members of the National Guard, 5 members of the state police, 2 state government officials, and 1 member of the federal state government. Protesters reached an agreement with the government, including a public works plan for their communities and guarantees for public transportation. In addition, the demonstrators also unblocked El Sol Highway, one of the most important in the country as it connects Mexico City with Acapulco. In Canada, a heat warning remains in effect for the Northwest Territories, where temperatures are expected to exceed 29 degrees Celsius. The country's environmental authorities have issued a warning that the heat wave will extend to the town of Inuvik, 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. Thermometers have set new records with 4 of the 5 highest readings in the last 8 years. Officials said some forest fires were still burning in several regions of the country due to the heat wave. Meteorologist Jesse Wagard told CTV News that 4 of the 5 highest records ever recorded in the Northwest Territories have occurred in the last 8 years. He added that over the past 10 years that he has been studying northern communities, he has seen temperatures rise at an exponential rate. On Tuesday, a study led by scientists from a French Public Health Institute and the Barcelona Institute for Global Health said the continent could face more than 94,000 deaths from heat waves by 2040 if no action is taken. The summer of 2022 was the hottest on record in Europe, with successive heat waves causing record temperatures, droughts, and wildfires. Scientists analyzed temperatures and mortality data for the period 2015-2022 for 823 regions in 35 European countries, with a total population of more than 543 million people. From this data, they built epidemiological models to predict temperature-related mortality for each region and week of the summer. Overall, the analysis shows that there were 61,672 heat-related deaths in Europe between May 30th and September 4th, 2022, and a particularly intense heat wave between July 18th and the 24th led to 11,637 deaths. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories are coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu informed that Ukraine's military casualties exceeded 26,000 since Moscow started its counteroffensive during the Russian special military operation. The high Russian official detailed that since the beginning of the counteroffensive, 21 aircraft, 5 helicopters, 1,244 tanks and other Ukrainian armored fighting vehicles have been destroyed. He also informed that Russian air defense forces had also shot down 176 shells from HIMARS systems, 27 Storm Shadow cruise missiles, and 483 drones since June 4th. According to the minister, in general, none of the Ukrainian armed forces goals were achieved. Finally, Shoigu warned that the U.S. transfer of cluster munitions to Ukraine would only contribute to prolonging the conflict.
This will naturally have the effect of prolonging the conflict. Neither us nor the Americans nor Kiev have joined the Convention on Cluster Munition. Understanding the threats to peaceful civilians, Russia has refrained and continues to refrain from their deployment in the special military operation. In the case of the United States supplying cluster munition to Ukraine, the Russian armed forces will be compelled to respond with analogous warfare methods.
And Russia denounces to the UN that Germany, Denmark and Sweden are not providing data on the investigation of the Nord Stream sabotage. Russia's permanent representative to the UN, Vasily Nebensia, noted that Moscow reserves the right to independently investigate the pipeline explosions.
Mr. President, we want to stress that any efforts to cover up the sabotage in the Baltic Sea are doomed to fail. We expect the authorities of Germany, Denmark and Sweden to take concrete steps to conduct an objective and transparent investigation into all the circumstances of the incident, with the obligatory participation of Russian investigative authorities and other interested parties. In the meantime, we reserve the right to conduct our own investigation. In this context, we took note of the statement in the letter from the authorities of Germany, Denmark and Sweden that access to the crime scene is allegedly open. We presume that in this case, our investigative authorities can independently examine the crime scene at any time as part of the criminal proceedings initiated by the Prosecutor General's Office of the Russian Federation pursuant to the Article and Acts of International Terrorism.
Nemensia said that Moscow would continue to expose the Nord Stream incident at the UN Security Council until the perpetrators were identified and held accountable.
The Russian Federation will continue raising the issue of the Nord Stream sabotage in the Council until the perpetrators are identified and held accountable. The letter mentioned today leaves little doubt that this is not a goal that the three national investigations seek to accomplish. We will use all the means at our disposal to make sure that this goal is in fact achieved. We trust that our constructively minded colleagues in the Security Council and other members of the international community will support our efforts, and we are open to cooperation in this area. The Council must make it clear that crimes against cross-border pipeline infrastructure, which pose a direct threat to international peace and security, will not go unpunished. Only then can we prevent the recurrence of such crimes to which any state could fall victim.
On Tuesday, the remains of 30 victims of the Srebrenica massacre in Bosnia were laid to rest as thousands commemorate the atrocity's 28th anniversary amid growing tensions. Bosnian Serb forces captured the eastern town on July 11, 1995, and in the following days summarily killed some 8,000 Muslims in an act labeled as a genocide by two international courts. The remains of most of the victims were later found in mass graves in eastern Bosnia, where the perpetrators moved them from original burial sites to cover up the crime. Many of the 30 victims buried on Tuesday were identified in previous years, but the family chose to wait until more of their remains were recovered.
I cannot describe how I feel. I was here during the war, from the start in 1992 until the signing of the Dayton Peace Agreement. I lost my mother, a brother, two cousins, uncles, and many other relatives. It had a devastating impact on me.
We are very sad, and we will always be sad. There is nothing more I could say. There is so much sadness in us for all this year. We are struggling to live with the consequences of the genocide. But we must keep talking about this genocide because we, the victims, are being humiliated constantly, and that is not right. I think we must find a way to live together.
On Tuesday, the UN Human Rights Council is heading towards a divisive vote on religious hatred following recent Quran burnings, with some Western nations reluctantly feeling the draft resolution encroaches too far on free speech. Pakistan and other organizations of Islamic cooperation countries secure an urgent debate at the UN's top rights body after Quran was burned outside Stockholm's main mosque, triggering a diplomatic backlash across the Muslim world. Pakistan's draft resolution condemns all manifestations of religious hatred, including public and premeditated acts of desecration of the Holy Quran, and underscores the need to hold accountable those responsible. It urges states to adopt laws to address, prevent, and prosecute acts and advocacy of religious hatred that constitute incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence. On Tuesday, Chinese Vice President Han Sen stated that the country is willing to work with all countries to address global development challenges to realize common prosperity. The Vice President pointed out that a series of important initiatives, including the Global Development Initiative proposed by Chinese President Xi Jinping, have contributed Chinese wisdom to solving common problems faced by mankind and won extensive acclamation from the international community. Han made the remarks while meeting with delegates from Asia, Africa, and Latin America, attending the just concluded first high-level conference of the Forum on Global Action for Shared Development, which aims to transform the GDI from a Chinese proposal to an international consensus and a form of unilateral initiative to multilateral actions. Foreign ministers of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations met for a second day of summit in Jakarta, Indonesia. The escalation of the Myanmar conflict is said to be a key topic on Wednesday's agenda. The meeting, which runs until Friday, will once again put the principle of consensus on which the bloc is based to a test, as it includes Myanmar itself, whose foreign minister has been systematically excluded since the February 2021 coup in the Asian nation. The ASEAN leaders agreed with junta leader Min Aung Hlaing in April of 2021 on 5 points of consensus to address the then emerging crisis in the country, which included an end to violence against civilians and inclusive dialogue, among other things. However, since that date, little progress has been made to fulfill the pact, and contrary to its purpose, battles have intensified and spread throughout the country. And TeleSUR English launches some videos on the band site for you to go and revisit their interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Go to the top left corner in our website homepage and click on the video option to access our VOD platform. We will now take a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. On Wednesday, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas arrived in the occupied West Bank city of Jenin following the attacks perpetrated days ago by the Israeli army. The Palestinian president visited Jenin to assess the conditions of the citizens and the progress of the reconstruction work in the refugee camp and the city. Several Palestinian officials, including Prime Minister Mohammad Shetayyeh, greeted the president upon his arrival. Israeli armed forces stormed into the Jenin refugee camp on July 3rd and the 4th, killing 12 Palestinians, injuring more than 100, and devastating homes and infrastructure. In this context, Jenin refugee camp residents have made progress in recent days in rebuilding their homes following the Israeli attacks that were described as the worst in the area in 20 years. Jenin is located in the north of the occupied West Bank, 75 kilometers from Jerusalem. While this camp was established in 1953 in the southwest corner of the city, it has a population of about 14,000 refugees living in an area of 0.42 square kilometers. On Wednesday, groups organizing the Israeli demonstrations reported 120 people arrested during protests against the judicial reform proposed by hard-right Netanyahu government. On Tuesday night, the largest demonstrations of the so-called Day of Resistance against the controversial judicial reform plan took place in various cities. Meanwhile, roadblocks, rallies across the country, and a large protest outside Tel Aviv Ben Gurion Airport took place throughout the day. The mobilizations take place after the Israeli parliament approved a bill that limits the ability of the judiciary to overturn executive actions, one of the main actions of the reform proposed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. On Tuesday, Russia vetoed a Western United Nations Security Council draft resolution violating Syria's sovereignty under the pretext of delivering cross-border aid. Syria's permanent representative to the UN Ambassador Bassam Sabak said that Western states are still politicizing the humanitarian act and going far beyond in exploiting its mechanisms as a tool of pressure and political blackmail against Syria. Sabak said that since the first day of launching consultations regarding the extension of the resolution's effects, Syria has been keen on adopting a constructive approach to meet Syrian people's needs without any discrimination or politicization. He added that Syria has showed a positive openness and engagement with friendly countries at the UN Security Council, and it has expressed concerns about the Western draft resolution based on the evaluation made for the implementation of the Resolution 2672.
Today, we are witnessing once again another act which is played out by Western countries and is part of the show called the Cross-Border Mechanism for Providing Humanitarian Assistance to Syria. Its main characteristics are a complete disregard for the interests of the Syrian people and the intent to artificially provoke Russia into using the veto.
This Wednesday, Kenyan President William Ruto welcomed his Iranian counterpart Ibrahim Raisi, who began a tour that will take him to several nations in the African continent in order to deepen bilateral ties of cooperation. Raisi was officially received by his counterpart at the presidential palace in Nairobi, Kenya's capital. In a statement, the Iranian Foreign Ministry said that the objectives of the president's regional tour are to promote economic diplomacy, to strengthen political relations with friendly and allied countries, and diversify the Islamic Republic of Iran's export destinations. After concluding his stay in Kenya, the Iranian president is scheduled to make official visits to Uganda and Zimbabwe, where he will sign several cooperation agreements in different fields. On Tuesday, the Egyptian government said it had inked a series of deals to sell off $1.9 billion worth of stakes in state-owned companies in a move that promises to bolster Egypt's ailing private sector. In a televised news conference, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouly stated that the government had received $1.65 billion and the equivalent of 250 million in Egyptian pounds for the sales. Madbouly pointed out that the selling of shares in the country's large state-owned communications company, Telecom Egypt, contributed to $1.9 billion, but provided no further details. Among the other sales outlined in Tuesday's news conference was a deal to sell off 25 to 30% of Egypt's stakes in chemicals companies, Elab, petrochemicals firm Ethdico, and petroleum company, the Egyptian Drilling Company, to the Abu Dhabi Development Holding Company for $800 million.
We announced today that we have been achieved contracts with the private sector, which will be announced by the Minister of Planning, and in total are 1.9 billion American dollars. In total, as the Minister will announce, as a country, we will be receiving that from a few companies. From that number, we received $1.65 billion, with the remainder of 2,050 billion that we will get in Egyptian pound, or we have actually received them, or a part of them, from the communications company and some other companies that the Minister will talk about. But what has been implemented and we are announcing now is that we've worked with 1.9 billion in a very short period of time. We will announce another deals that will pass 1 billion.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website, TeleSUREnglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.